Hello, eighth grade. Hope all is well. Hope you continue to have good weeks and all those things at your house, and make sure you're still staying active and all those good things. So, getting some fresh air as well. But we're going to keep going. We're going to get started with lesson 57 today, which is operations with small numbers and scientific notation. Now, I know you guys have done this one already, but we're going to keep doing like a review one to make sure we're still being able to perform those tasks, and then we're also going to do a new one. So this is the review one. Make sure we can still do it, and then we'll introduce some new stuff in the next lesson. But again, this is lesson 57, operations with small numbers in scientific notation. Okay. Now, I wrote 4 problems on the board. I'll get out of the way so you can kind of see. The 2 on the left are division problems, as you see with the fraction bar, and they are dealing with small numbers in this case, because we know it's a small number because it's -8, and then that means that it's got to move 8 places this way. That's how you'd put the number into like a real number, so you'd actually see what it looks like. So you're going to divide this very small number, and you're going to divide it by this very small number. You're doing the same thing with these ones, but then now on over here, you're multiplying them, okay? And it's really, there's just a couple steps, I guess, but just to reiterate, the first rule of anything in scientific notation, the very first number, as you see right here, like this one, 2.4, that's the very first number. Or this one, number 2, that's the very first number. 4, 5, those are all the very first number. 4, 5, 2, 2.4. The very first number has to be between 1 and 10. So if it's not at the end when you get your answer, make sure you go through that and we'll fix it, which you'll see here in the examples. We're just going to perform these 4, and then I think I'll let you get going on them. But that's the first thing. The first number has to be between 1 and 10, okay? And then there's really just 2 steps to doing this. We'll start with these ones on the right first, okay, the multiplication. Now, if you look up here, all you're going to do is you're going to multiply the first 2 numbers together, because you know when parentheses are next to each other, you multiply. Okay, so the very first number in this one is 2.4, and then that number is 2, so we're going to multiply 2.4 times 2. Which we get 4.8. And now that number, 4.8, is between 1 and 10, so we can leave that. We know that's going to be in our answer. Okay, so I'm just going to write this up here. I'll just say equals 4.8, and then we know the next portion is going to be times 10 to now, we don't know the exponent yet. That's what we have to figure out, okay? So now when we go ahead and we do the exponents, you know you're multiplying because of the parentheses, but what you actually do is you take the exponents and you add them when you are multiplying. Only for the exponents. So I'll show you this example. What your problem you're going to figure out that you should be doing is -6 plus, because that's what you're going to do when you multiply exponents, you add them. Okay, -6 plus -2. Okay, we need to see what that equals. So basically we're starting at -6 and we're losing 2 more, okay, which is going to put us at -8. And -8 is going to be the exponent for our answer. Okay, so if you look, that's the first answer right there. 4.8 times 10 to the -8th. And again, just to reiterate what we did, we took the first numbers and we multiplied them because of the parentheses. We multiply the numbers when they're in the parentheses. But what we did with the exponents is we added them, because that's how you solve the exponents when they're in a multiplication set like that. You actually just add the exponents together. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started on the bottom one again. How we got started, what do? You multiply the first 2 numbers, which 4 times 5, we all know is 20. Okay, so now here's an example. Remember, the first number has to be between 1 and 10. 20 is not between 1 and 10. We'll fix that at the end, okay? But for right now, we're going to just say, hey, that's our beginning number. But we'll fix it at the end. It's actually going to say 2.0 and not 20. But like I said, we'll get that at the end, okay? So now, the next part is we know we need to add the exponents. So it's -6 plus -4. And again, that means we start at -6 and we lose 4 more, which actually puts us to -10. So when we go and we write this out, that's what your answer probably looks like right away. But remember, you cannot leave that there, okay? So where is the decimal in the spot in the number 20? Well, it's after the 0, you just don't write it. It's right here. We just don't put it in, okay? So we want to move that one spot to the left because we know that we need to say it needs to have a first number between 1 and 10. So it's actually going to be 2.0 because we're going to move it 1 that way. Now that's also going to affect our exponent. It's not going to be -10 anymore. And just here's how you can kind of figure out what it's going to be. Okay, so from our original answer, we're supposed to move the decimal back 10 times to the left. Okay, and then that would be the number that we're talking about. So since we already moved it 1 closer to the left, we're actually going to add back a number to that -10. So we only actually have to move it 9 more spots. Okay, so that's why it's -9 and not -10. So final answer is right there. Okay, just to reiterate what we did, again, we multiplied the first 2 numbers, got 20. We know that that number's got to be between 1 and 10. We fixed it at the end. I just wrote it in as 20. And then we added the exponents, got -10. And we know we need to make it as 2.0, not 20. We actually moved it closer to where we need to move it, so that decreased that, or that added that one by 1, so it's -9, okay? If we go over here to the left, I'm kind of off screen a little bit, but I think you can still hear me. We start up here. We do everything the exact same, except we're not multiplying, we are now dividing, okay? So I'm just going to erase this stuff over here. Let you see it for a second one more time just in case you need it. Then I'm going to erase that stuff to the right so we have some more room to write things down. Okay? All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide the first 2 numbers. 2.4 divided by 2. So we go 2.4 and we divide it by 2, just like that. First number goes in the box, which is that one. Second one's on the outside. How many times does 2 go into 2? It goes in 1 time. Don't forget to bring the decimal up. Okay, that's just obviously 0. Drop the 4 down. How many times does 2 go into 4? Goes in twice. Okay, and there you have 1.2 for your answer, which is in between the 1 and the 10. So that's good. That starts us with our answer. I'll write it way over here, 1.2. And we know the next part is times 10. Now we just need to figure out the exponent, okay? Now, when we did our first examples, we added the exponents because we were multiplying. But on these ones, we're going to subtract the exponents because we're dividing. Okay, so it's actually going to be -8 subtract -2 equals what? Okay, now, if we remember, when we have a negative or a minus sign next to another negative, that actually turns the entire thing into a plus. So it means this: start at -8, but add 2. That's the same exact thing. Okay? That equals what? Well, that equals -6. So our exponent then is -6. Okay? What did we do? We took the first 2 numbers and we did what it said. We divided them. And then, instead of adding the exponents, we're not multiplying here, we are dividing. Now we actually subtract the exponents. But what happened when we have a minus next to a negative, it actually turns the entire thing into a plus. So that's why it is the way that is. Okay? Let you see that for a second again. Okay, I'm going to erase that one. Okay? And was it the last one? Okay, so let's start with the next one here, this last one. Okay, it's 4 times 10 to the negative 8th divided by, that's the fraction bar, 5 times 10 to the negative 2nd. Okay, so the very first thing you do, you start off with dividing the first two numbers. Okay, let's do that. We go 4, that's on the top, and 5's on the outside of the box. What happens when you have a bigger number on the outside? You automatically, you write a decimal, you write another decimal right above it, and then you add a 0. So I always say, when the bigger number's on the outside, decimal, decimal, 0. That's what you always add. Then you can solve the problem. And now you're looking at how many 5's going to 4. Well, obviously 0 point something, and 5's going to 40. That's 8. Now, we got 0.8 for our answer. That is not between 1 and 10. But we will fix that in the end, okay? So I'm just going to start our answer over here. I'll just say it's 0.8 times 10, and we don't know what the exponent is yet, okay? So we'll get that in here in a second. Now the exponent, you see you have negative 8. The divided sign, when you're dealing with exponents, actually means to subtract. So it's negative 8 minus negative 2. Okay, and just like last time, what happens when you have a minus next to a negative? The whole thing turns into an addition, besides the first number, obviously. So it's negative 8 plus 2, which is going to make us have negative 6. Okay? So now, what this means, we know we can't leave it like this with the 0.8. But what this means is our number is going to move 6 spots this way. Okay? That's what those little U marks are. Those are, moving each spot over. I moved 6 spots. And all these would be filled with zeros. Okay? But remember, we can't have that. So instead of we want this saying 0.8, we're going to have this say 8. And we know where the decimal is. In 8, it's actually to the right of it. It's 8.0. Okay, so remember, we still need it to end up in the exact same spot. 6 spots to the left from where it originally was. But now that we moved it even further away, we're actually going to have to move it one more time to make sure it ends up over here. So that's why it goes to negative 7. You need to move it 7 times from where the 8 is now, which I'll get out of the way so you can see that. Okay, and again, what we do, we took the first two numbers, we divided them. 4 goes in the box, 5's on the outside. And then we subtracted the exponents. But when you have two negatives next to each other, or a minus and a negative, it turns that into a whole, it just turns it into an addition sign. Okay? And for our final answer of 8.0 times 10 to the negative 7th. Okay? So I hope that helped. Again, if you have any other questions, we always go on Wednesdays at 12:30, and then we go on Thursdays at 2. Send out a link, about a half hour before those times. And if you got questions or you just want to listen to other people and visit, socialize, look forward to having you. So take care and have a good day.